Hi, Cameron.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great.
How about you introduce yourself for us?
All right. My name is Cameron Ahouse. I am 34. Yikes. In Boston, and I am the community marketing manager at Roan Apparel. It's a men's apparel. Um, a former football player. It was a while ago, but I feel like sports have led me to a lot of things in life and ingrained a lot of good and strong traits that help me succeed. And happy to be on your podcast.
Awesome. So, what's your journey with mental health been like?
Uh, I want to say it's fairly new. I think like 2019 was probably like the first time where that's when I started to feel comfortable talking about it. Um, didn't grow up in a household where you shared your feelings. I lost my mom in high school, and she was the individual, the parent that promoted that. Um, and so, yeah, didn't have that through high school and going and forward. Um, But in 2019, I was in Austin, Texas, and went to this event, which was sponsored by Guy Talk. And they're fairly new. And it's no longer around now, but it helped kind of create a lot of things I do at Roan. And it was just an individual guys that during the event, they just started like sharing and being like, hey, like, I'm not good, or I'm going through A and I'm going through B. And I was like, I resonate with a lot of that. I've never met these guys. They're just willing to open up. They seem awesome, like really cool dudes. And I was like, maybe I can start doing that. Um, and so come 2020, they opened it up so that we started having members and we started doing Zooms. And we just started doing Zooms, and then Zooms became super popular when COVID hit. Um, and really just started staying in touch with guys and meeting a lot of guys and opening up and doing small group discussions. And then in 2021, we had a retreat in Austin. I was actually living in Austin at the time for a few months. And that was just such a great experience. All walks of life came together, varying ages, diversity. Um, and that is really where I started to feel like much more comfortable, um, kind of just sharing my story and like my struggles and realizing that there are other individuals, men and women, that are going through it. And so just the more people talk about it, the more we're going to break through that stigma and it's going to become more accepted.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you mentioned, like there are people there from all different walks of life, and I think mental health is one of those unifying factors that everyone deals with. It doesn't matter what your background is, where you came from, what your age is, ethnicity, just it's one of
Right.
those things that we all deal with.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a shame that more people don't realize that.
Mhm.
But each conversation, or even each podcast, somebody will listen to it and realize that they're not alone, and that whatever shit they're going through, somebody else is probably going through something similar. And so just so they don't feel alone, I think that's also like first good step for them to kind of break through and start to work through it.
Exactly. I mean, as you said, there's this stigma around talking about mental health, which unfortunately prevents a lot of people from speaking up, which then in turn makes people feel alone because they think that they're the only ones going through this or that they're all alone, when in reality, they could probably walk down the street and find someone that's going through the same thing as them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there are a lot more people going through it than they realize.
And now, when you're an athlete, did you find that your mental health influenced your athletic career at all, or that your athletic career has influenced your mental health?
Um, so I have been thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it more because I have a buddy who you should definitely talk to. Is Corey Camp down in Austin. And he has came out with a book, but his whole thing is how athletes go from, and I played like a high D3 school for football, but you go from all this structure, and then that's kind of like your worth, and then you go into the real world, and you don't, like, you're not a professional now, and it's kind of like, what is my identity?
Hmm.
Um, And so I'd say that's what affected me the most, where I was like, what am I going to do? Um, I'd say in college, I didn't experience, or at least I don't recognize any like mental health issues while playing. I think I was just very hard on myself, which I still am today. And maybe sports had something to do with that, where I put that pressure on myself. Um, but where was I going with this? What I think is that what it allowed me to do is take all of that energy of that I had in football and like, this is my identity. And it's like, now where can I take that and how can I apply that to life? So I worked in finance in Manhattan for 7 years and got all my licenses and did very well before switching careers. But I just took all the energy and all that discipline and focus and motivation from football and I just applied it to my job. Um, and so I think that helped me succeed and that discipline helped me grow and do well. And sports definitely contributed to that.
Absolutely. I think sports definitely build a lot of really good skills in people that are transferable across a lot of different aspects of their life, especially going from a sporting to a professional job career. Um, and when you were talking about that shift from athletics and then retiring and having that part of your identity kind of leave you and having to establish a new identity, did you find that that was a real struggle to lose that part of your identity? And if so, was there something that you did to help you or some kind of turning point where you kind of reestablished a new identity?
Um, New identity when I moved to Boston for sure.
Mhm.
But no, I'd say I think the hardest thing was I was so used to being able to rely on my teammates to basically it's like a Bill Belichick, but like do your job. And so I played corner, which is very like solo position, kind of out in an
Mhm.
island. But I would trust my teammates and linebackers and safeties to do
Mhm.
their job, and I could rely on them. And then having to switch that to the workforce or the workplace was difficult. Um, but you just have to adapt and learn and learn to trust people. And um, but I'd say that moving to Boston is when I really changed. That was 5.5 years ago, um, where I quit my job without a job. Uh, I don't recommend people don't do it if you don't have like savings. But I really took a big risk and a leap of faith and really believed in myself that I could find something kind of in the fitness world. So I ended up working at ASICS, as well as teaching group fitness. But that's where I really changed and really kind of dove headfirst into the community side. Because when I was in New York, it was very much like working from 7 to 7 and getting my workouts at night. And that was really it. I was headphones in, not talking to anybody at the
Mhm.
gym, just doing my thing and leaving. But moving to Boston and finding group fitness classes, that's when I really found the power of community. Where that's where I feel like I thrive the most is in the fitness environment. That's where like my emotional wall comes down fastest.
Mhm.
Um, it could be anything. It could be yoga. It could be CrossFit. Um, but that's where I feel most comfortable. And I know that a lot of people enter those atmospheres being very uncomfortable and intimidated. Um,
Yeah.
so I always try to make sure that I welcome people and I usually like if I go into a new class, like I'm nervous, like I'm going to one tonight,
Mhm.
uh, and I'm a little nervous, and it's like half strength, half yoga. Like I know I can do these, but it's still exhilarating and going to be fun. But I'll walk in there a little timid, but hopefully open up pretty quickly. But going back, I think that finding the fitness community is what really helped change me and helped change my career path to where I am now, and just really embracing that side.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned making people feel comfortable and welcome because that's something that I've been embracing more lately is just trying to help people who might be going through things that I've gone through in the past and just using my experiences to try and make those times a bit easier for the people and just eliminate any possibilities of them having to deal with what I did. Um, and so I definitely resonate with that. And then speaking of community and those around you, how have you found that your community and people that you're around every day, family, friends, how have they kind of supported you through your journey and impacted your mental health?
Excuse me. One sec. Wow. All right. Sorry about that. Uh, how do I feel like community impacts my mental health?
Yeah, so like those around you, whether it's coworkers, friends, family, how have they kind of helped you with your mental health journey?
Yeah, I think it's just you come across a lot of individuals that were athletes, and that do go through some of the same struggles and the identity crisis and wanting to find that sport family dynamic again. Um, I'd also say like probably one of the biggest things that I deal with that I don't ever really talk about, which I probably should, but it definitely has to do. And you see this a lot with trainers, more along the lines of like body dysmorphia and not feeling that you're good enough. I know a lot of individuals that have gone through like eating disorders because of it, and you always see like trainers and they're like, oh, they're super fit, and it's like, well, they may be, but they're also probably severely critiquing themselves all the time. And it's nice to kind of talk to individuals that go through this. Um, and it helps me realize that I'm not the only one that may be overly critiquing myself. Um, it's also nice within the fitness community just to see others want to lift each other up, and those individuals that value community over competition.
Hmm.
I always feel like there's plenty to go around. That applies to within Boston, that applies to like on Instagram. Um, and just leaning into those individuals as opposed to individuals that kind of just want to take it all for themselves. So yeah, I'd say like leaning into the people that want community over competition, because those are individuals that you want to surround yourself with. They're the positive people. They're the people you can lean on. And I've definitely found a strong network within Boston and also within like other markets in the U.S.
That's awesome. And on the topic of like body dysmorphia, is there anything that you found has helped you be able to view your body in a more positive way, like aside from the community that you're mentioning?
Uh, I mean, my girlfriend's always very complimentary and always positive. Um, and I lean on her a lot. Um, but no, I guess in general, it's like it seems like a never ending battle where I just like will wake up and feel really good. And then other days I'm just like, what am I doing?
Hmm.
But I think a lot of that comes from sharing a lot. And I realize like my shirt's off a lot on Instagram. But feeling that I need to look a certain way in
Hmm.
other in order for others to value me or like believe in me or trust me. Um, like I want to be a source of inspiration. Um, and a lot of that is just like a lot of the way I look or what I do is all through hard work. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it, but I just started seeing a therapist, and I'm sure that's going to be a topic that'll come up. We just talked about it last week. Um, but I don't know. I haven't come across anything to like help me get over that or have more confidence in myself. But usually people don't think that I struggle with that. Um, but which makes sense. Um, because they are sure being off a lot, wouldn't convey that message. But also it may just be me trying to overcompensate.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's not going to be an easy fix. It's not going to be like a one day you just wake up and it's gone. It's going to be kind of a continual process, something you kind of always have to deal with. But then, as again, as you mentioned, like it's not something that people would like assume or like think that you have to struggle with. But
Right.
that's been one of the things I've been trying to address through these interviews is that you don't know what someone's going through just from looking at them or seeing
Yeah.
like the outside of their life, what they present to the outside world. I mean, like I've discussed with multiple people about Instagram being kind of like the highlights of someone's life.
Mhm.
Um, and people often they present towards others like the things that they want people to see about them. You're not gonna see all their low moments, and so I think it's important that we realize that a lot of people are going through different battles of their own beneath the surface and things that you don't know about. And so I like that you mentioned that. And then
Yeah.
over your journey, is there something that you would say has been your biggest struggle?
Um, biggest struggle. Um, Probably my willingness to start the conversation. Um, it was really nice to have those guys during COVID to talk to. Um, but it really was like start the conversation. And then the second one was that I need to see somebody professionally. Um, if I tried to see somebody a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have a very different outlook and I would not be as honestly, it was so nice the first time speaking with her and just kind of like dumping everything. And I walked out and told Gabby, like, that was great. But I felt like such a relief.
Hmm.
But I think that if I tried to do that a year ago, I would not have been able to. Um,
Right.
I think I would have been more closed off um, and more unwilling to share as much as I did. And I think it was very important that I did share what I
Hmm.
did the first time. Um, so yes, I think people should see a therapist, but it may not be the right time. Maybe you need to just start having those conversations with your partner, with a parent, with a best friend, with just somebody that's you trust. Um, well, that's like the piece of advice that I would give is like start a conversation, make it be a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be, like I wouldn't go and talk to somebody about my mom to start off, but I may say, uh, I don't know, like, oh, I don't even know what an example would be. Uh, but something that makes you a little uncomfortable. So kind of like helps you chip away. And like, I look at speaking about your mental health like working out, where you're not going to be able to walk up and just like bench 300.
Exactly.
You need to start small and build your way up. Um, and that's what I've been able to do over the last few years. And so now it has led to where it's like, okay, now I feel comfortable to see a therapist. But it started off with small conversations. It started off with me admitting things to guys that I didn't know. However, I knew that they wouldn't share anything, or it's just talking to friends and saying, hey, like I had an interaction with a friend and it hurt me, and I kind of hung on to it. And then finally, I went up and I was like, hey, you did this. This is how it made me feel, and this is why. I don't
Hmm.
like how that felt. I did not expect that. Um, and just like sharing that as opposed to like just attacking them, but to share like this is what you did, this is how it made me feel. Your intentions may not have been that, but was the reaction, and action. And yeah, just having like those little uncomfortable conversations. Um, I think like is like one rep, right? And so like you keep doing reps and you'll get stronger and better at it. Still have a ton of work to do. But I'm very happy with the progress that I've made. I can't say if it's been good or bad progress or if it hasn't been like as steep as it needs to be, but in general, it's started low and it's now up higher. So I'm happy with that.
Exactly. I mean, no one's journey is perfectly linear. Like the road and the path that we're following, it's not straight. We're gonna have little dips and turns and times where we have to backtrack a bit and then go forward again.
Yeah,
And no two people's journeys are the exact same, but if we're working on it and we're making progress, I mean, that's the important thing.
exactly.
Um, and as you said, I just wanted to second your advice for if you're struggling with anything, reach out to someone, as you said, if it's just a friend, a family member, a teacher, someone you trust, significant other. You don't need to go through this alone. And if you don't think you're ready to talk to a therapist, that's completely fine. You don't need to jump right into it, but I would highly recommend you start talking to someone, because bottling everything up inside can be really harmful. And so, even if it's just like getting the courage to pick up the phone or even just send a text message to maybe a friend or a parent, a sibling, and just be like, hey, I'm going through this right now. I could just use some support.
Yeah,
It can be scary, but that's just taking that first step and that first jump is really important.
absolutely.
And then do you have any tools or strategies that you've found have helped you with your mental health?
Yeah, the biggest one, therapist. Second, just having individuals that I feel like I can confide in. Um, and third for me, and this is for any men that are listening and are in any markets where our own store is, but I started this thing called Mind and Muscle. So it can be pretty difficult to take a bunch of guys and just put them in a room and be like, hey, talk about your feelings. A lot of guys would be like, yeah, that's not
Yeah,
happening.
no.
Um, however, with the muscle component, if you usually these are like an hour and a half, but you have like a 20-30 minute workout. We've done breath work, we've done staring in a mirror, which was very hard. We've done hardcore workouts or yoga, but some type of movement component, whether you're working in groups or individually, but as a larger group, and then you sit down and have a conversation. Usually have those endorphins going, and then your emotional
Hmm.
wall drops at least a little bit, and then you can have those conversations. So hence the mind and muscle. Those have been great. I started doing that in 21. Um, and it just helps a lot of guys. It's their first time ever like opening up in public or opening
Hmm.
to any individual, and that are holding in a lot of things. And it's just their opportunity to realize like other men are going through this. Other men, they may be struggling and say like, I don't know what to do. Like my wife and I are having issues. We have a newborn child, and some other guys like, hey, I've had 4 kids. Like we went through the exact same thing. It's totally normal, or whatever it is. Or I was an athlete and now I'm not. Body dysmorphia or issues with a partner, or issues with a job. Like someone in the group is also going through that same thing or has
Hmm.
gone through that. And I think it just allows guys to open up, realize that there are other men that are or have gone through the same struggle so they don't feel alone. And it sometimes it's just their first conversation, it's just to kick off. And it allows them, hopefully, then to feel comfortable to have another conversation. Could be next day, could be a month later, and then one more conversation. And hopefully those conversations snowball into something where then they start to feel comfortable more openly sharing and speaking what's going on in their mind so they're not holding things in. um, and just helping again break that stigma, allowing guys to open up, be as vulnerable as they want without any judgment. And something that's super important to me and to Roan, but it's also just something that guys can do themselves. So
Hmm.
uh, I found that to be great. A lot of great feedback from it. I wish I had that when I was like in my mid 20s instead of starting at 31. But yeah, it's been great.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, there's something so special and powerful about sharing your struggles for the first time, I think, because it's something that can be super scary to do. But I think once, like, having that said aloud, like, once you say it, and then having someone there to validate your feelings and make you feel supported and heard. And I mean, there's something about having someone standing in front of you saying, I've gone through this too. Like I know what you're feeling, and just having someone that relates to what you've been going through, when you've been feeling like you're all alone these past however long you've been going through it. It's just super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're almost finished, but just to end it off, I know you've mentioned a couple things already, but do you have any other words of advice that you'd give to someone who's currently struggling with their mental health?
My biggest thing is just start with a conversation. Um, I don't know. I like to look at it as if you have a friend and they're going through something, you would want them to talk to you.
Hmm.
So just understand that it's flipped as well. Like it goes both ways. If that friend cares about you, they're going to want you to share. I think there are too many people, especially men, that think that it's not manly enough and like they're not tough if they share what's going on, um, which then leads to worse circumstances. So just start off with that conversation and just get a little bit off your chest, um, and just see how you feel. So start small. It can be a little uncomfortable. You could also just have like just do a regular conversation, call up a friend, say you want to talk to them. But just understand like if you want a friend to talk to you, if they're struggling with something, understand that it's definitely goes both ways.
Absolutely. And it takes extreme courage and strength and bravery to share your struggles. And so there's no one that's above sharing what they are going through. It's not a sign of weakness or um, like that you're any less of a man if you are going through mental health struggles. Like sharing and speaking up about that, that is a sign of strength and
Mhm.
bravery. So never doubt that.
Yeah,
All right, well, I think that's it for us, but thank you so much, Cameron, for taking time out of your day to meet with me today.
that was my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, take care.
You too.